Hello, friends. It's John Clan Third of episode 167 of Shadow and Flame of Magic, the podcast. And today we're going to review X-Men Manhunt parts 1 through 3 and Daredevil Volume 4, Issue 3. So let's get into them. Brr, 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 brr. All right, so spoilers for last week's comic. So X-Men Hunt started. With three of the seven chapters, with one side collateral damage issue. It launched out of Uncanny X-Men 11, where we set up Xavier. His daughter Xandra is in Shi'ar space and is being attacked, and Deathbird tries her best to keep her safe. She's a very protective aunt, as she should be. And then Xandra sends out a message to Xavier, who's dying from that avian flu. Um, and then Warden Ellis has a temporizes him, so it messes up his powers, and so calls Rogue and the Louisiana X-Men to come get Xavier calmed down. And then when he sees them, he envisions them as the original five X-Men, which is a fun little idea. Like Wolverine looks like Beast and Jubilee looks like Cyclops because of the visor, which is fun. I remember who Iceman was. And at first, oh, and before all this, Rogue's doing a training exercise with the Outliers, and Kurt takes out uh Kaliko using teleportation. Like there's a big circle and they're like, hey, everyone, you stay here, and if you stay in for more than 2 minutes you win. And then Rogue, to teach a lesson, decides to have Gambit explode cards around Jitter that knocks her out, and everyone thinks Rogue's a real jerk. Jubilee thinks to the point where she reminds her of Cyclops, which I guess is an insult in this current era, but it seems like, yeah, you mean one of the best leaders the X-Men have? Yeah, thanks, Jubilee. Like, it's exactly the message Rogue wanted to send. Um, Logan calls Rogue Moonshine again, or Moonbeam, and it still feels weird. Like, I'm not on Team Moonbeam yet. Um, and so we get the, at least we get the X, because my big thing was like, Rogue was literally trying to free Xavier 3 months ago, and now he's trying to escape now. It's like, man, you could have saved a lot of time, a headache. But his daughter's in danger, and he's a girl dad, so he wants to go help her. Well, I would say one of my biggest complaints is that by issue 4 or part 4, he's still not in space yet. Like, why are we taking so long to get to space? Like, but I guess he doesn't really have friends that can just get him to space, but we'll get there. Um, so I think that's all the parts of Uncanny X-Men issue 11. And so then we get to NYX 9, part 2. And so Xavier has escaped. He has the Krakoan seed from the end of volume 6 of X-Men, which Doom had. And Doom apparently is ruling the world. And so one world under Doom, actually. And he's taking up working out of the treehouse from the previous thing, which NYX has been doing a great job of keeping the Krakoan era legacy alive. And so to get the speed, he went to the Morlocks, who immediately are like, "We want nothing to do with you," which makes perfect sense to me, as Xavier has a long history of ignoring the Morlocks to the point where Cerebro clearly detected mutants were living in the sewers of New York, and he was like, "None of these powers excite me. Plus, none of you excite me, and I don't want you." Like, to the point where the Morlock Tommy had the ability to flatten her body down and go underneath doors and doorways, and instead was like, I want a 13-and-a-half-year-old teenage girl from Chicago who pretty much does the same thing, but I could put on her poster, though he never does. So it's like, what are you doing here? So the Morlocks are immediately like, oh no, they send Xavier to the NYX team. And so then he does, and Prodigy in his right mind, it says, "We don't want you here either. Get out of here. We're not child soldiers." Which, to Kitty Pryde's exceptional X-Men, uh, I mean, arguably, there's been no reason to do it, but she's not been sending them out to. She hasn't made child soldiers, which Rogue has failed and has definitely used those outliers as child soldiers. So Prodigy's like, "Get out of here." But Xavier needs some help, and Miss Marvel, being all heart that she is agrees to go help him. And Sophie's powers are still out of whack, so at least one reason why she doesn't go. And so then they go. Anole goes with her to be like, "Hey, let's help you out." But the whole Krakoan seed, which the whole time I'm reading this, I'm just like, when did the Krakoan seed happen? And it turns out it's a complete misdirect that he just needed to get to the treehouse because he needed to find one of his old Cerebro helmets from the Krakoan era. And then Miss Marvel and Anole have to fight Doom bots. And it turns out Mojo's there because he wanted the film rights to the X-Men or to the One War Under Doom, which imagines a meta commentary about the Doom movie coming out, which is just awkward as it's like, but that's not Doom, that's just a variant Reed Richard or Tony Stark. And so it's just like, what is the plan here? Like you're muddling the Doom, Doctor Doom thing. Like there's gonna be trades for Doom, but also it's not Doom, it's Iron Man. Anyways, I'm not on board yet about the Robert Downey Jr. Doom. And I probably never will be, but we're getting a lot of X-Men rumor casting, including the daughter from the Steven Spielberg autobiography film, auto filmography. Is that what you call it? I doubt it. What's her name? Miss Butters? And I don't know, I'm just happy that Kitty Pryde's in the first wave of X-Men, or at least rumored to be. Well, someone commented about how the Rogue rumor, like she's an older gal, and they're like, "You think she want younger?" I'm like, "Well, probably because they want her to be next to Tatum Tatum, Tatum Tatum." I don't know why I can never say that guy's name. I butcher it every time. Um, Channing Tatum, right? Has to be his real name, right? Like that's not a four guys in a room where like we know what we need. He's gonna be hot. We need to put a name on this kid. They know because some guy from Arizona is gonna really butcher it. So let's just stick to his real name. So he gets the Cerebro. Mojo's gonna attack them, and I guess they're gonna defeat Mojo in their final issue number 10, which I still feel like, when did they get a sales bump from the X-Manhunt and getting them at least to issue 12? Remember when 12 used to be the golden number to get to? Like I remember when 25 was the goal, if not 100. But like issue numbers by 25, divisible by 25, like 25, 50, 75, 100, and like those were milestone issues. And now it's like, you got to 12, good job. Outside the your plan sticks, where it's like, ugh. Like I've been doing this comic book researches and going through like Marvel fandom and trying to be like Captain America Volume 6, issue 25, and it's like, or Volume 7, 25, and trying to get to the volume I hoping to find. And it's like, man, like it's sort of cool that like, hey, like who are the creative teams? Like, yeah, we were Volume 8. That's our volume. Like the Kelly Thompson Captain Marvel Volume 10, like that's hers. Or like the Krakoan New Mutants Volume 4 is the Krakoa era, X-Force Volume 6, Wolverine Volume 7, X-Men Red 2, uh, X-Factor was a fourth volume. Sabretooth was a fourth volume, I want to say. There's Excalibur was a volume 4. It's just interesting that a lot of volume 4s were the Krakoan era. Oh, X-Men volumes 5 and 6. And you, dear listener, is probably thinking of one right now that I'm not saying. Because I refuse to say it. No, it's clearly because old dad can't think of it. We'll come back to it. And so, yeah, NYX is ending. X Forces, X Factor is going to get one bonus issue. And then we get volume issue part three, oof, with Storm 6. And I thought this one was the best of them. Xavier comes to Storm, who's annoyed, and he's like, hey, you're a wanted felon. I'm going to call the Avengers. And he's like, hey, 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 before you do that, let me tell you something. And then, of course, we cut to Maggot, who has Eenie and Meanie, who I love because I love a mutant who has an animal companion, clearly. And one day we'll have an X-Pets title. That would be amazing. Like, there's plenty of them. I mean, there's Locky for sure, Eenie and Meanie. There's Ember. There's all of Gabbitt's cats. I feel like there was another one that was an obvious one that I always forget about. Oh, Danny Moonstar's horse, Brightwind, or is that She-Ra's horse? Or are they both Brightwind? They can't both be Brightwind. Like someone would have been like, "Hey, Marvel's Brightwind." Like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. Um, oh yeah. So Storms like agrees to get him. Turns out her base can turn into a spaceship, or at least a supersonic jet, because she's taking flying him somewhere, but not to space. And then we get the X-Men showing up, Cyclops and Magic, the Alaskan X-Men, I guess to simplify it. Magic's here. She's annoyed to be there, which I like. Um, and then we get Storm versus Cyclops. And Storm's currently the Eternal Storm, because Eternity is giving her a power boost. And I guess Cyclops got a power boost as well, so they're somewhat even because Eternity and Infinity, right? I don't know. Like I have a grasp on Marvel Cosmic, but I don't love Marvel Cosmic. Like I'm not the biggest space adventure guy either. Not with my Earth-based heroes. Though I love Kitty Pryde being a guardian of the galaxy, a guardian of yeah. And but like, and I would have committed. Like if she married Star-Lord, that would have been fine. But anyways, and so she takes out Cyclops. She stops the Juggernaut and Juggernaut. What did I say? Juggernaut? That's not right. Juggernaut, and so Eternal Storm's a big deal, and clearly this is her new status quo. Like this is the Storm. Get on board. This is what the rest of the run's going to be like. And then Xavier just motors off, and part four will be X-Men. So that's a fun back to back. Like it's the one that, like, hey, we're following this thread now. And that, dear listener, was X-Manhunt 1 through 3. And so ideally, the positive momentum from three will just continue forth. And then it's continue Daredevil month with Daredevil Volume 4, Issue 6. And let me get to the title page here. I'm going to post the images on this podcast's socials at SNFWM. And you can, uh, oh yeah, and then you can follow along on TikTok and YouTube at Jacko SII. I lost 2 subscribers, which I was so happy when it hit 570. Oh no, 370. I would love to be at 570. And then all of a sudden I dipped down to like 369 and went to 368. And I'm like, what happened? Like I gained two and lost two. It might be the same two people, but it's like, why? Anyways, so if you have access to 5 different computers, like if a friend goes like, "Hey, let me show you a cool video," subscribe to my channel while you're at it. Why not? I'll take the subscriptions, please. So this came out in September 2014. It is an original Stin tie-in. The recap page is pretty fun as it looks like a New York City Bulletin front page. Storytellers are Mark Waid and Javier Rodriguez. Inker. Oh yeah, so that's the penciler, but also storytellers. So that's fun. Inker Alvaro Lopez. Colors Javier Rodriguez. So fun that he does pencils and colors. Letters is VC's Joe Caramagna. Covers by Samney and Rodriguez. Editor Ellie Pyle. Editor-in-Chief Axel Alonso. Chief Creative Officer Joe Quesada. Publisher Dan Buckley. And Executive Producer Alan Fine. This comic would have cost you $3.99. It's rated T plus. Cover also says Guardians of the Galaxy 1 comes out on August 1st, so that's fun. And here is the previous. Oh, and they're getting buying this newspaper would have cost you $1, which feels low. I mean, outside the city it would cost you 150. So I don't know why you're buying this paper outside the paper, but sure. Blind Man Sees. People caught in the blast radius of the most recent superhero incident are reporting strange, revealing visions of long-buried secrets. Could this be linked to the murder of a rumored cosmic being known as the Watcher? Numerous superheroes were on the scene, including Daredevil, whose alter ego, the blind lawyer Matt Murdock, moved to San Francisco after being disbarred the state of New York following his admission under oath that he is the masked hero. And so Matt's narrating in the rain because classic Daredevil. Oh, and by the way, the first two episodes, so spoilers for the first two episodes of Daredevil, which I was reminded by Brett of Comic Book Queers, great podcast, that it's supposed to be an 18 episode season. Like for some reason, I was like, oh, this is 10, right? But apparently it's 18, so I commit to this, I guess. Um, as an attorney, I could tell you without hesitation, and the most unreliable witness in any circumstance is memory. The human brain is spectacular at playing tricks on itself to help people remember what they want to remember. Sworn witnesses will bet everything, all sincerity and zero doubt, swearing that a green light was red or that they heard sounds they couldn't possibly have. That's just basic neuroscience. Recollections fade like photos left in the sunlight. And just because I haven't had a visual memory since I was blinded as a kid, I'm hardly immune. I never realized how deteriorated my mental snapshot of my late father, the greatest man I ever known, had become until yesterday, when a brand new look at him got force-fed directly into my brain. And so you see happy Jack Murdoch holding his gloves, but then you see angry Jack Murdoch holding a crying Matt Murdock. Then dramatic page flip, and we get a double splash of all the heroes. I've taken back in New York trying to tying up loose ends for my move west when I got sucked into a big fight between a villain called the Orb and half the hero community. I'm lousy in these. My radar sense can only handle so much chaos, and any Donnybrook wild enough to involve both the Hulk and the Thing is, for me, like being caught in a hurricane. I heard an explosion. I felt jagged glass plunge into my brain so that I had astounded to discover I wasn't at all wounded. And so the heroes from reverse clockwise. Well, no, let's do it clockwise because it was weird saying reverse clockwise. It's Storm, Spider-Man, the Peter Parker one. Spoiled. Hulk, Nova, Luke Cage, maybe Iceman. Oh yeah, these are ice bricks. Magic, hence me buying this. Daredevil himself, a lady with like a gimp mask and with her red hair poking out. Captain America, the Steve Rogers one. Black Widow, Nick Fury, the dad one. The Thing wearing the red and black Thing pants, which I prefer Thing in pants and boots. That's just my preference. Iron Man in like a black and gold. And then Thor, the boy one. Come to find out, it wasn't anything material. It was images, visions, unfamiliar, yet far more vivid and unmistakably more real than anything I hung on to from my childhood. Visions of two people, one of whom I've barely actually seen until now. I'm trying to remember. The X-Men had the Last Will and Testament of Xavier. One of the Spider-Man ones was Silk, because I own the first appearance of Silk because of this. And I think Thor had something that made him unworthy. Yeah. So that is what I remember of Original Sin, and that the series itself wasn't that great. But because Magic was at the scene of the, and I think Kitty Pryde was seen too, I own a couple issues of Original Sin, which is fun. My father, and we see Maggie on the ground with a bunch of like shattered plates and lunch, and my mother. And it just, oh, I guess content warning for domestic violence. I'll get better about the domestic warnings. 300 Rise of an Empire is coming to Blu-ray, DVD, and digital. Remember when we used to do all three? Which I never saw the sequel. Eva Green's in it, apparently. Lena Headey, which that name sounds familiar. Yeah. And so we see Matt's at his father's grave site, and he just grabbed some mud and just smeared it over the words "a good man," which is weird that that is on his tombstone, but sure. We get to the recap page, and Magic's on that page, so that's fun. Because really, that's all you need in that square. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is coming to San Diego Comic Con. Fun. I know this weekend is Emerald City Comic Con, and I should try to go to that because that's like the biggest Comic Con closest to us. And though it's arguably like still an 8 hour drive, so it's like we had to drive there. But it'd be nice if we could maybe, make that a venture. To call that memory crystal clear would be selling it short. It wasn't just fragments of pictures in my head. It was real. It was the smell of our old apartment, the familiar cling of the radiator, and the taste of spaghetti, Dad's favorite, in the air. Before I went back home, I had to know for sure just how delusional I'd been about Jack Murdoch all my life, how flawed my own worship of my father really was. If you knew me, you understand why that would become an instant obsession. My mother would have the answers. Her name was Oh, Grace at the time. But I never knew her as a boy. She left my dad, who never talked about her. Only in the last few years did I discover what had become of her. She'd become a convent and had been watching me from a distance under a different name. So he's talking to the father. His heart rate spakes as if I asked him where I could hide a bloody axe. Why on earth? He excused himself to comfort one of the other sisters. I can't help but eavesdrop with their whispers. To me, they might as well be shouting. The one of the nuns come up to him and explains the situation. I mean, a public identity doesn't open as many doors as you think, especially now that I'm no longer allowed in the practice law in the New York State. I have no attorney-client privileges to invoke, and I'm being despicably stonewalled. After a frustrating afternoon of calling in favors, I'm allowed to visit her. And so she describes what happened. They were opening a chemical. So some sisters are doing an act of civil disobedience. They're spraying graffiti on this wall. And it turns out the wall is actually part of a Wakandan building, and so now they're prison. They are, international criminals. And so, um, Ma Sister Maggie's hoping that God will watch over them, and that she has, or her time's up. So Matt goes back to narrating. Insanity. I bribed my way into the warden's office with insincere promises of Daredevil autographs and proceeded to tear him a new one about the civil rights of spray painting vandals to no end. He honestly knows nothing can provide me with no leads. The only orders he has are the NSA dispatch. He's to hold the three nuns until extraction end of intel. The police are of no help. Conveniently, they have no records of the arrest. The media has been silenced. My contacts at Shield express sympathy, but everyone on federal level insists this is a municipal matter and vice versa. My God, I still don't even know what the charges are. It's like a Kafka novel, which the only one I've ever read was Metamorphosis. And to this day, I still don't know, is he a giant cockroach on a bed, or is he a cockroach-sized cockroach? Or does he start man-sized cockroach and shrinks down, which is what I believe is what's happening? But or is he never a man-sized cockroach? Because it reads differently, like he is gigantic. And then the whole movie's Metamorphosis musical did not assist with that. So. Great episode. Whole movie's top five comics. Oh, speaking or not animated series. Um, Speaking of which, Space Ghost Coast to Coast. We lost Space Ghost. George Lowe succumbed to an illness that left me pretty bummed on Thursday. At GameStop, I saw there was a Space Ghost Coast to Coast Funko finally with the shark from Kentucky Shark episode. I already owned the Space Ghost from the 60s, and I'm really trying to keep my Funko collection to just pure X-Men. Though I did buy Elphaba from Wicked because, well, Wicked was amazing. And now I gotta decide if when they make the sequel, when they make another Elphaba, do I get that one? And most likely I will, because man oh man, do I love Elphaba. And when I finally let myself into the military base, Maggie was protesting, expecting an armed confrontation, and need be, it's been abandoned. There's no one here to question. And the Guardians movie's coming. Wakanda is an African nation once ruled by T'Challa and the Black Panther, whom I consider a friend. But the Avengers tell me he's lost the throne to his sister Shuri, who I've never met. He's vanished, and no one in the palace will take my cause. I'm running out of time, but Hawkeye, the boy one, reminds me of one last lead. Wakanda has a Manhattan embassy. Getting through security is no problem for a man who can detect infrareds and ultrasounds. It's still early. Staffers are only just now filtering in. I could rampage around, demanding answers, but without knowing who to confront and with no leverage, that's a garantium gamble. Gargantuan gamble. I don't think I ever said that word before. I don't think I said it now. So here's how I choose to act. I find a place to stand perfectly still, and this is an awesome double page spread where you just see him in a hallway and everything else is in green as his sonar reflexes bounce everything around him. And listen to every conversation in the building at once, every joke, every argument, every apology, straightening to keep them all separate and straight in my quickly aching head. As the day drags on, the voices multiply, and amplify probably. Some are in English, some are in Wakandan. I don't have to understand every word. I just have to hope someone speaks some key ones in time. And then we get an ad here for Guardians of the Galaxy 18 by Bendis and McGuinness. I have no idea what Nova's original sin would have been, but everyone has one. Have faith, she said. Believe in the Holy Father. I struggle to stay focused, packed on the newly stirred images, but they demand my attention. Oh yeah, he's seeing the repeated images of his father angry and Grace crying. Dad never said why mother left, and I never asked. But he loved her. I know he did. And yes, he was a physical man, but he never laid a hand on me. He wouldn't have, never have. God, please don't let it be too late to know. I could have asked Maggie any of a dozen times before this. Why didn't I? Well, probably because you don't suspect your parents of domestic abuse, right? Hours, or you obviously know it's happening, and it's like, ugh. Hours pass, my head is splitting, and just when I'm ready to give up and interrogate the acting ambassador, something pings on the second floor. Daisy's here to see you about extraction, sir. Send him in. There's a ad here for Wolverine 12, double-sized series finale, 1 Month to Die by Paul Cornell and Pete Woods. And so these guys are talking about the nuns and how they're being sent to Wakanda. And then Daredevil breaks in and they laugh at him. And then they overwhelm his sonic powers. And then this dude just hits Daredevil in the back of the head with a stick, and he goes down. Get your guard up, Matt. He's taking another. Oh, stupid, stupid. I've been up 36 hours. Sonics are like shrapnel in my ears. I'm exhausted physically and mentally. I didn't expect a fight, but I'll give him one anyway. He kicks him to the face. Headache's compromising my radar sense, but I don't need it in a close quarter combat. And then the other admiral hits him with a chair. And then Daredevil's down. And Daredevil's trying to be like, you can't extradite those. They're American citizens. We're on American soil. And they're like, no, you're on Wakandan land. And then they just throw him out of the building. He's got to be 4 floors up, and he runs into some garbage. And then they just taunt him from like 4 floors up, which I would say to anyone else would probably just be murmuring. He's like, I can't understand a word you say, but because it's Daredevil, he's probably hearing every single word. Once I heard you've been actively meddling, I moved up the timetable on our 3 prisoners. They left an hour ago, which is always a fun, like, oh yeah, we should have just shot him in the head in the beginning. Next, Law of the Jungle. Inside back cover ads for Dr. Pepper with Rocket Raccoon. Dr. Pepper, the only soda we're drinking for the next 4 years. Back cover ad is the Wrecked and Ruined Part 3 of 6, the Harley Davidson cycles with the Wrecking Crew and Sonic Storm, who I don't recognize, but I imagine it's a superhero made up for this ad. And that, everyone, was Daredevil Volume 4, Issue 6. And where's my notes of what else came out last week? Oh, yeah, and then Wolverine 7 came out. Um, it was a very light week for X-Men comics. Uh, Romulus is still there. He knocks Logan down a pit, and turns out the Adamantian or the Adamantine is in its pure source, and Romulus touches it and becomes Gold Romulus, and then he's going to defeat him. The issue started in a fun waiver X20. Oh, I'm so sorry. Laura Wolverine gets a quick, like, this is what I know about Romulus. And Logan's like, that's pretty much right. And then Romulus is finally like, hey, stop talking about me. I just get like you're wasting my time, which is like that's a fun little meta commentary of like we gotta update him. Um, we get a reference to like Logan's like talk about Roman days and how old Rodimus is, and he uses Jesus Christ as a historic reference point, which I struck me weird as you think he wouldn't make a Jesus reference as a timestamp, but I mean it's effective. Like oh, so 2025 years ago. Um, so yeah, like very little buddy material besides that moment with Laura and in the very beginning. And so, and I'm only here for the relationships, and so a little disappointing. And Ronimus is just sticking around. Donald Pierce and arguably Lady Deathstrike are somewhere in the vicinity, but I doubt they're going to interact together unless they're mind controlled. But yeah, so that's that issue. So let's look at what's coming out this Wednesday. It's a giant week. We have X-Men 13 with part 4 of X-Manhunt, X Factor 8 with part 5, which I'm very hoping Forget Me Not's in that. And then Hellhunters 4 and Hellverine 4, which I feel like just came out 2 weeks ago. Iron Man 6, which I think we just give up on any X-Men content there. It's a lot of Avengers content though, or at least Ironheart content. Namor 6, which is ending. Stingray hasn't been in since issue 3, so I'm really hoping in the finale that Namor finally catches up to him and goes, "Hey, let me tell you some stuff." Phoenix 9, which I believe might be wrapping up that story of the Jean versus her new friend. Sabretooth Dead Don't Talk 4, which was a amazing series thus far. Frank Thierry responded to my review of it on Blue Sky and actually started following me too, which now I feel responsible of like, but so far he's been making a great comic, so I don't have to worry about it. And even though he clearly read my comments about, my misgivings or my hesitation about Sabretooth. So, and so far this has been a Sabretooth worth reading. So, all right. West Coast Avengers 5, which has, oh, and West Coast Avengers 5, and hopefully just keep getting Firestar content. But I suspect we're going to be following Spider-Woman now. But we'll see what happens. But as long as it's those two, I'm pretty happy if it. And then I had X-Men X Factor written down as they're in alphabetical order. So yeah, big comics this week. I am excited about X-Men 13, X Factor 8, Sabretooth Don't Talk, West Coast Avengers 5, and I guess Hellhunters 4 and Wolverine 4 is those have been pretty solid. Wolverine 4 has got to deal with his mother, and Hellhunters 4 just the World War II heroes versus, demons and such. But yeah, and Iron Man 6 had some plot that I was just like, I no longer care about this. And now I'm looking at this. So for Magic content, it would be X-Men 13. And I forget what Daredevil. Well, I know between the two, but these were my two Daredevil comics, and now we're gonna do some X-Men comics that have Daredevil in them from Hunt for Wolverine. And I will. Well, one of them is literally Hunt for Wolverine, and the other one was Hunt for Wolverine subtitle. Ugh, it did not come to me. Dead ends. Oh man, I look at this old dad memory. So, anyways, thanks everyone for listening, dear listener. I really appreciate you listening or watching on YouTube, and I will talk at you next time. Thanks, and until then, bye.